The editor is often called the last writer of the film. We rewrite with the pictures in the movie so that the earlier you can get the editor in on story development, the better off you are. An editor can really help you solve story structure problems, character development structure problems, just like the writer can. That doesn't often happen. One of the most essential things is making sure that your time code is correct. Time code gives a number to every frame of film or video so that you can track back to the master when it's time to make your final product. If that's not shot properly or transferred properly, then you have to match everything by hand, which takes forever. So one of the most important things is setting up your cameras, setting up your production, your sound system, your transfer system to make sure that you have the information in the computer that gives you the proper list when you're done with cutting. The edit decision list is what tells you how you get back to the master shots and in what order. Not long after production is over, you then have a final cut of the completed film. That can be often 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks after production is finished. That is called the editor's cut. It's very useful for the director and the editor to get together in advance so that while the director is on the set shooting, the editor is fulfilling the director's wishes in that first cut, and you're as far along in the process as you can be. When the editor's cut is finished, which is not long after shooting, then you go into the second phase, which is the director's cut. Then the editor with the director sit down all day, every day together and refine that cut. Sometimes the director will give notes to the editor and will go away for a few days, let the editor work on a scene or a sequence and refine it alone. Traditionally, the first is the editor's cut, making the best you can make out of the raw footage, which is actually, in my view, the hardest cut because it's where you're structuring the film in the first place. It's where you're finding those performances, you're finding those moments, and then you refine and refine and refine, polish and polish and polish. Just like writing, it's all in the rewriting, it's all in the re-editing to make the film the best that it can be. The editor's relationship with the director is really important to how the film comes out. And hopefully that, again, has started in pre-production and through production. But it gets very intense in post-production because you're dealing with a lot of issues of why people wanted to make the movie in the first place and how that relates to their personal lives. And obviously, all those secrets stay in the cutting room, just like any good relationship. You don't tell those tales out of school.
When computers first went so everybody could do their own desktop letters and whatnot, people would use 5 or 6 fonts on one thing they do. You knew they were playing with everything they could, and it's the same idea. Less is more, and the more people can try to learn that and stay away from, use the bells and whistles as needed, but less is more in many of the great films didn't have any of these bells and whistles, just as needed, even though those, you know, I've often said the keys on the Avid should have dollar signs because they means dollars for the producer to pay and dollars for us to make, but in reality it doesn't make a better film.
There are 2 ways of cutting negative. In the old days, it was by work print only, in which case it was editorial would put together a 35mm print, and we would match the camera negative to that print, and that was the only way to do it. And Avid came along, and now through the last 10 years, now we cut to an Avid, we cut to videotape, and that's generally for first-time filmmakers. It's usually we end up cutting to a videotape. What we use is called a lockbox. The lockbox converts the videotape speed to film speed so that we can cut the original camera negative to video, to your video master. They do run at different speeds. Not a lot of people know that. Whatever you see on your video will always look different on the screen. People mentioned that earlier when it came to visual effects and stuff. Dissolves happen faster on film. There's a whole time element. They run it at different frames per minute. Thank you. So we cut either with lockbox or we cut by the work print. Basically, with major studios and big budget features, it's all work print cutting. Although more of them are going to lockbox cutting. And what negative cutting is matching the original camera negative to the final cut that editorial and the director and the studio, everyone has signed off on, and they've okayed it, and they give it to us, and we take your original camera negative and we make it match what editorial has turned over to us.
It all depends. Generally, you know, you're testing. If you make the film, you're gonna test, and you know, unless the first time you show it, you have like such amazing scores that you don't have to worry about it. You're gonna tweak. You're gonna play around. You're gonna see what works and what doesn't work. I mean, I've seen some pretty amazing transformations from pretty awful first cuts to pretty decent finished films. I mean, even the big even the best directors in town are still going through the process. I mean, their movies may be on, the reviews of their movies may be on Ain't It Cool, but it is a process. There's an amazing amount of footage that's shot versus what makes it onto the film, and there's a lot you can do. And I mean, I've seen a movie that the whole ending was reworked, and the movie ended in a place that was probably 5 minutes before it should have ended, and it didn't matter, and you would have never known.